Okay, this video is very important. This video is about the true definition of anti-Semitism. Keep in mind they're changing the sound of my voice because they know that I'm right. So to understand what it means to be anti-Semitic, we have to understand what it means to be racist in the first place. A racist is someone who practices the false idea that all races are only what their race is without the spirit of universal pinpoint and moral precision, which the monotheistic person who has sense would say is the spirit of God. But scientifically speaking, it's the spirit of universal pinpoint and moral precision. In other words, a racist is somebody like a Klan person will say, well, Martin Luther King was a very good man, what have you, but he's still, a black person, so the person doesn't like him, okay? Or when they look at the situation, they're going to say their race is the best no matter what, no matter how many moral acts another race has done. So if their race is less moral, collectively, historically, as far as anyone knows, than another race, they're going to still insist that their race is superior. That is the essence of being racist. Okay, it is someone who practices the false idea that all races are only what their race is without universal pinpoint and moral precision. They usually favor their own race, and they often use stereotypes to lie. So a huge part of racism, which a lot of people zoom in on, and it's not the only part, it's missing the central part, is the stereotypes. The central part of it is not giving everyone credit where it's due. This is key here. Now let's look at the Old Testament, okay? The Tanakh, the Torah, what have you. Let's look at Deuteronomy 28, verse 37. What does God have to say to the Jews in their own story about anti-Semitism? It says, you will become a thing of horror, a byword, and an object of ridicule among all the peoples where the Lord will drive you. So if you break the covenant, right, like have 1,500 rapes every year in Israel, not scramble to get that number down or to eradicate rape, if you break the covenant, like creating a secular nation that's immoral, having controlled opposition people all over the world, along with people who admit they openly support Israel, with only a small group of people who may or may not be trying to do the right thing, right? If you break the covenant, Deuteronomy chapter 28, it tells you what will happen, and one of the things that will happen, it says in verse 37, that you will become a thing of horror, a byword, a byword, a byword. Like somebody calling you a name that you don't want to be called, a byword. Goodbye, you're no longer honorable, you're like the walking dead, you're a scoundrel, a byword, and an object of ridicule among all the peoples where the Lord will drive you. I came across a Jewish female's video the other day, and she was saying that all these things are happening to the Jews because God is punishing them for what they're doing. So according to the Jewish religion, if they become a thing of horror, a byword, and an object of ridicule as the result of them not being holy, not being righteous, not being perfect to the best of their ability, then that is God punishing them. And they have no business telling people to not punish them for being immoral. Therefore, that is not being anti-Semitic. So what is being anti-Semitic? An anti-Semite is somebody who practices the false idea that the Jews are only what their race is without universal pinpoint and moral precision. Now, bear with me. That doesn't mean that every Jewish person on the planet couldn't possibly be in the wrong. That does not mean that. That means that if there was ever any Jews who were doing the right thing, okay, that those Jews are the exception to the rule. A racist will not make that exception, and they'll often use stereotypes. And the main thing that they do, pay close attention, is they downplay the implications of collective morality, if you will. The idea of there's a group of people, say black people. Some are serial killers, some are thugs, some are better than Martin Luther King. One is Martin Luther King, and so on and so forth. Actually, look at the group and say, hey, this is the most moral group on the planet, historically. Yes, there's a lot of them are bad guys, but collectively, when we put it all together, when we add it all up, they're the most moral. A racist will act like that's not the case. And one thing they'll often do is they don't want their daughter to date the most moral black person because he's black. They will downplay the implications of black people being the most moral as a group, or another group that's more moral than their group being more moral than their group. Okay, because they're focused on the false idea of what a race is without universal pinpoint and moral precision, okay, with falsehoods applied, what have you. And so when we understand what a racist is, we understand what an anti-Semite is, okay? And you have to use a proper scale. God commands the righteous to view anybody who has broken the covenant, Jew or Gentile, as a thing of horror, a byword, and an object of ridicule. And among all the peoples where the Lord drives them. All the peoples are supposed to do that. Well, let's look at Psalm 137, verse 21. It says, "Do I not hate those who hate you, Lord, and abhor those who are in rebellion against you?" So we see in the Old Testament, it says that Jacob he loved, Esau he hated. And he started to explain, God through the prophets explains that he hated Esau by his actions, by turning his people into evil people, his spiritual state into, a depraved and dark and evil spiritual state, what have you. Okay? So we know that God, and through his spirit, hates the wicked. So what David is saying to God in Psalm 137, okay, verse 21, he's saying that I'm in your spirit too, God, or I'm trying to be in your spirit is what he's saying. That he therefore hates. That's as a result of him trying to do the right thing to the best of his ability, trying to come into the spirit. In the spirit or otherwise, he hates those who hate God enough to rebel against him. That's why he says, "Do I not hate those who hate you, Lord, and abhor those who are in rebellion against you?" So, do I not hate those who hate you, Lord, and abhor those who are in rebellion against you? So it's saying, okay, so those who hate God are rebelling against God, breaking his covenant, not obeying God through me, what have you. And some like to say things like, "Hey, we know what you're trying to say," as they're making it harder for me to speak. What I say to them is that you're just whoever you are, whatever word you deserve to have to be called by. That's all you are. Okay? And I'm God's son. I'm saying it through sabotage, and you're interfering. You're not saying it, and you're certainly not saying it with divine authority, because you're just whatever insignificant thing you are. That's an example of staying true to Deuteronomy 28, verse 37, and Psalm 137, verse 21, which are both core scriptures. They are God saying through the prophets, this is what's expected of you. So when we see things like, turn the other cheek, okay, it's within the boundaries of hating the souls of those who rebel against God, the souls and their being. It's within the boundaries. Okay, when it says love your enemy, when love comes into contact with the wicked, it burns them, right? The Lord is a consuming fire. Who can dwell in the consuming fire? The righteous. The consuming fire of God, and God is love. What happens when it hits the wicked? They burn. They burn in hell, for example. They burn. So to love your enemy is to hate your enemy. What Christ is saying as a character in the story is to focus on the component of doing it out of love for God, not hate with that flesh-based hatred. And this is a common way of speaking in the Bible. It's saying, don't rely on the flesh in war, rely on the Spirit of God, but that might include shooting somebody, stabbing somebody, what have you.